I'm Sam McKeag, and this is Saskatchewan. It was a story that captured national attention in September 2024. A 15-year-old girl headed back to school in the fall, set on fire in a hallway. It happened on just her second day of grade 10 at Evan Hardy Collegiate in Saskatoon. Because the case has been in the court system, we haven't been able to learn a lot about that day beyond the basic facts given to us by police. The girl at the center of the story is trapped in a headline written by others. She's the girl from Evan Hardy, the girl on fire. That changes now as she shares her story in her own words. My colleague Dan Zakreski sat down with her and her family. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Sam.
First of all, we aren't naming her, but how long have you been talking with her?
Well, Sam, we actually reached out to her parents right after this took place. They were in court for the accused's first appearance, and that's where I intersected with the story as a court reporter. And, it became really clear when I first saw them in court, just the fragility of this story and how it would demand a very particular approach. In this case, I didn't even approach her parents out of the gate. I approached a young woman who turned out to be her cousin and gave her a business card and said, look, can you please get this to the people at the heart of this story? And then over the course of the next few months, it began with texts to the family, and then over coffee, and then in person. And eventually, she and her parents wanted to talk. So we met up at their house. And we agreed not to identify her either visually or by name because she's a youth victim of crime. And by not doing that, it solved a lot of problems with the courts because not only was identifying her as the victim an issue, we didn't want to inadvertently identify the accused, who's also a youth. So there were some practical concerns, and she still wanted her privacy at this point. She's still traveling to Edmonton for treatment of her burns, and she will be doing that for the next year at least. You have to understand the catastrophic injuries that this young woman suffered. She had burns to 40% of her body. That's her face, her arms, her torso, and her vocal cords.
So why is she speaking now?
I kind of knew we were going to do all right when I first met them for coffee. And by coffee, I mean her mom, her dad, her brother, and her. We met at Smitty's at Market Mall here in town. And I sat down, and she has a very raspy voice. And I said, look, you know I've been trying to get a hold of you for 5 months. Yes, I know. I said, well, why did you want to talk now? Why now? And she said that she's mentally recovered enough now to share her story. She gave this a lot of thought. She knew I was sniffing around the periphery. And, it's been 6 months since what happened to her happened. And she's well onto her physical and emotional healing journey.
I'm glad to hear that. Dan, take us back 6 months. Take us back to September of 2024. What does she remember about that day?
Sam, she remembers everything. And that shocked me, given what had happened, what we just described. She never lost consciousness through any of this. Her narrative was, leaving the classroom, all of that stuff. So it was a Thursday in September, the second day of grade 10. It was just before lunch, her third period. And when I was talking to her, it was the ordinariness of the day that I found so striking. She had said that she had just blown a pop quiz in her history class. She was still mad. She only got 3 out of 9. She had a new pair of eyeglasses, and they had popped out. So she's texting her mom saying, come on, Ma, it's class. It's just the teenage exasperation, even with all of her injuries, it just came through. Great, this is my second day of grade 10. And then the lunch bell rang, and she headed out into the hallway, and then it was just so sudden.
Everything was covered in flames, as in my face was on fire, and I was on the ground rolling and trying to get the fire out, and I was screaming help me, oh my gosh. And as that was happening, my voice voice slowly started like deteriorating into what it is right now. And like my voice just kept going quieter and quieter, and I didn't understand why.
You know, she was telling me that, and I couldn't believe. I mean, I tried to put myself in her position, and she's talking, and she's losing her voice because she was breathing in these superheated fumes from the flames. And she is healing. I mean, over the course of time that I met with her and actually interacted with her directly, her voice had improved over the 2 or 3 weeks. But it's still low and hoarse, just like we heard.
So the initial shocking moment happens, then what?
Yeah, she remembers coming out of the classroom and this sort of, oh my God, I'm on fire. And then her next real clear memory is she's rolling around on the floor of this hallway trying to put out the flames. She remembers a teacher who was with her, a man named Sean Hayes, who's now been identified by everybody. He tore off his own shirt and jumped on top of her to smother the flames. And her parents to this day say that's why she's alive, because of what he did. She also can remember the fire alarm blaring. And you can imagine the disconnect. Like, why is the fire alarm going off? It's so loud in a school hallway, that clang, clang, clang. It's going off because I'm on fire. And then the pain. I think that because of the teacher, the flames were put out, fairly quickly. We're not talking minutes here. And then she has 2 distinct memories from after the paramedics got her onto the stretcher.
And then I got on the gurney, and one of the teachers, I think it was the assistant principal or something, they said they knew something like this would happen soon. And I just thought it was so stupid that they would say something like that right in front of me after it just happened. And I was on the gurney and I asked if my parents were coming because I just wanted to see them and I didn't want to die without seeing them.
Oof, that is tough stuff, Dan. How did her parents find out, and what was going on with them while all of this was happening?
Yeah, this is just a nightmare wrapped up within a nightmare because there's multiple perspectives. They found out because this young girl's older brother also went to Evan Hardy, and he had called his mom at work. He had heard from friends of his sister. Well, he knew there had been a fire at the school because the alarms were going off, but he had heard this sort of half-formed, I don't even know if it's a rumor, but his sister's friends were saying there was a fire, but we think it was your sister. And then he's thinking, well, was there a fire in the school? I don't think he ever conceptualized that it was his sister that had been lit on fire. So he phoned his mom right away and said, look, there was a fire at the school. You have to get there. She's at work. Her husband's at home at the time. He had a day off. He was playing tennis, as he told me. So she calls her husband, and they both race to the school. And you can just picture it. I know as journalists, we've all been at accident scenes. And if you roll up to a scene, it's like Dante's circle of hell. Mm-hmm. You've got the outer ring, inner. So you pull up to the school, and in the distance, you can see the flashing lights. You can see the vehicles. You get closer. There's groups of people. You get closer, and then all of a sudden there's this huge crowd. There's police on the ground. There's paramedics. There's students, and there's teacher, and they're right in the middle.
So we went into the school, and it was just like in the movies. The people parted, and we walked straight in, already sitting on a gurney. Her legs were strapped in, and she was sitting upright, talking. Her voice was a little raspy already. And she said, "Hi, Dad. Hi, Mom."
I can't even imagine that moment. What happened next?
And that was her mom, incidentally, who was talking. She was taken to hospital. One of the things that she remembered that she had told me was they didn't want her to lose consciousness. I think they were afraid of losing her in the ambulance. So she remembers getting a needle and getting shot up with probably adrenaline So she was conscious, breathing, and alert, as they say. She was taken to the hospital here in town and then immediately flown by air ambulance to Edmonton. Her mom was on the plane. Her dad and brother drove there that same night in a truck. The dad was just describing this, getting home, getting the go bag. Come on, son, get in the truck. They got there, and she was probably I don't know the medical terms, but she was out of it for about 2 weeks. When I talked to the young girl, she remembers sort of arriving in Edmonton, and then 2 weeks later, she sort of regained consciousness.
So how is she doing today? You said she's mentally recovered, but physically, how is she doing?
Oh, well, she's at home, which is good. She's not in the hospital. She's been formally discharged, even though she's going back and forth to Edmonton. She's sort of resuming her life, if I could say it like that. I mean, there's been this catastrophic event, but you still have to, at some point, pick up the pieces, and she's doing that. She's taking online classes. She's really enjoying math. That's her thing. She's trying to get back into playing guitar. She plays electric guitar. Metallica remains her favorite band. That's her go-to jam. And we had some funny laughs right off the top because as soon as she said she plays a guitar, well, I, of course, play guitar as well.
Oh, of course you do.
But I'm a Rolling Stones guy, and mocked me. She mocked me endlessly for that. I should start to listen to a real band.
Oh, wow.
Medically, she's going back and forth to Edmonton. That's where she's getting the laser surgery done, the skin grafts, the ongoing treatment. Her wounds are healing. The facial and the arms. It's tough to grasp the scope of the injuries to her body. She's also in physio because the one thing I had learned about burn victims is you have to keep the scar tissue moving so it doesn't settle. You want it to be still pliable as you recover. So she's doing a lot of that. She also has a close friend who comes to the house. Out of all her friends, she only has one that's actually seen her. She's the one that comes to the house, and she was there for the interview. And it was really cute, might be the wrong word, but it's the first one that comes to mind. It's a reminder that she still is a teenage girl. She's 15 years old, 15 going on 100 in some respects, given what she's gone through. But just to hear them joking and giggling and their preoccupations was really nice to see.
Some nice moments in what's really tough. Dan, as one could imagine, her parents have a lot of questions about what happened, how something like this could happen. What did you learn about that?
I think from the parents' point of view, when we first made contact and had that long lunch at Smitty's with the teen and her parents, they made it very clear to me that the decision to go ahead with the story in February of 2025 was a decision driven by their daughter. She was the one who felt it was time to talk, and she wanted to tell her story. Once we had established that, though, it was very clear that the parents had a role in this as well, and they had their own story that they wanted to tell quite forcefully because from their perspective, none of this happened in a vacuum. This was not an out-of-the-blue assault from their perspective. And they want to know what happened after police and the Saskatoon Public School Division were given multiple warnings over 2 months. As I got into it with them, over the summer of 2024, they went to police and the principal of Evan Hardy Collegiate with dozens of threatening texts. And whenever I hear, there's texts or there's any online stuff, my spider senses start to tingle, and I thought, trust but verify.
Yeah.
And they had kept copies of all of these texts, and I had seen the dated and time-stamped texts. And when I had actually approached the police and the school board, that was uncontroverted, unchallenged, so that the veracity of the text is not an issue. The parents had gone to the police and the school board, and they say that they were assured by both parties that a safety plan was in place.
Okay, so we know how this ended. We know what it led to. But how did all of this start?
Sure. The Teen's mom said it really began with their 15-year-old daughter going to her mom at the end of grade 9. So that would have been in June of 2024. So, roughly a year ago. And this was just before the summer break. She told her mom that her and her best friend had befriended another teen who had started acting strangely. This new friend wanted attention all the time. As you can imagine, it's high school, it's grade 9, you're trying to find your place. Everyone's sort of jockeying to find a group, and this other young teen had approached them, and the girl who went on to become the victim said, well, okay, here's my number, And then it became text, call every day, to the point where she backed off and said, look, I hardly know you. I don't need to talk to you every day. And when the accused did not get the attention that she wanted, this is when the story took a really dark turn.
What do you mean by a dark turn?
Well, the girl who was injured went to her best friend for help. So her friend began texting this new friend. And as I said, we've seen these texts, and to paraphrase, it was, hey, can you maybe back off? You're making my friend really uncomfortable here. But instead of stopping, we now had 2 teens getting threatening texts.
On this day, things were escalating very quickly. Within just a few minutes of being brought into the conversation, a text was received that said, you should slit your wrists and kill yourself. So we blocked everything. That's done. This is not playtime. This is ridiculous. Someone needs help here. They're saying that they need help, but in all the wrong ways. Block your phones. Don't answer the phone number. Block your social media. This doesn't continue.
So, Sam, the person we just heard was the injured girl's best friend's mom. And she was describing how when the injured girl went to her mother, the 2 teens and the 2 moms got together and basically got on what I was thinking of was a conference call. And while they were on that conference call, that's how this all happened.
So what did the parents do?
Well, both sets of parents, the teen and her best friend's mom, went to the police station the very next day, independent of each other, and filed separate reports. So this was on July 1st, 2024. They detailed the harassment and their concerns, and they also went to the school's principal, who got back to them and said, look, I've reached out to this troubled girl's guardians, and they're on board with this. Everyone at this point knew. The police said they'd opened up a file. The school said, we're aware of this, and we're taking the first steps.
So on board, but did it change anything?
The parents said for about a month, things quieted down. And as we know now, in hindsight, it quieted down for a month. We know from our court appearances that the accused teen during that month had spent time in psychiatric care at a hospital in town here. That came out in court. But then by August, as I say, things started ramping up again. The parents were trying to get answers about what was going to happen when school started in September. And it got bad enough towards the end of the summer, and they hadn't gotten enough answers that the injured teen's mom recalls a meeting in August just before school started.
The last week in August is when staff typically goes back to school to ready the school and the classrooms for the incoming students. So we knew that the staff would be at the school. So we went directly, after giving the second police report, we went directly from the police station to Evan Hardy. And the principal was there waiting for us because we had called ahead. She was willing to meet with us. We said we were very concerned about this person harassing our daughter and her friends, and we want to know, or we want to make sure that they are kept separated. She assured us that they would have a plan.
Assured them that they would have a plan. But we know now that on September 5th, the second day of high school, one of the 15-year-old girls was attacked and burned in the hallway at Evan Hardy. Her parents, the injured girl's parents, say the attacker is the girl who was sending the threatening texts. Now, at the time, a 14-year-old girl would be eventually charged with attempted murder, arson, and aggravated assault. She was arrested right at the scene by a school resource officer.
So what was this safety plan?
I'm getting this from the mother of the injured teen's best friend. And the narrative that she presented has been unchallenged. And I've confirmed this with off-the-record contact with police that I know. They told her, the parents, that the safety plan involved assessing the teen when she came to school. So this 14-year-old girl would arrive. She would be met at the school doors, taken to the principal's office, where they would do a daily bag check and do sort of a mental health assessment. Should she be in school? They did that the Wednesday, the first day of school, and they deemed her not fit to be at school, so they sent her home. On the second day, the Thursday of the attack, they did the same assessment. She was allowed to stay at the school, but then mid-morning something happened that triggered a reassessment, and she was sent home. So she was waiting for someone to pick her up right before the attack, waiting, I might add, right outside the classroom of the injured teen. So the suggestion all along was when she was leaving, she knew who the girl was whom she wanted to assault, and she arranged it so that she would be there when she came out of class. Now, this has not been tested in court or anything like that. This is just the narrative I got from the people involved.
So what do the school and the police have to say about all of this?
Neither are talking publicly right now. Not surprisingly, and it's not atypical for the police to say they're not going to discuss it. It's because it's before the courts. That's a fair enough answer. But they did say that they work with the school division on the whole issue of threat assessments, so they are involved in it in some capacity. The school division also did not want to talk. I had sent them a couple of days before, as I was working on the story, I'd sent them a fairly detailed list, not of specific questions, but of subject areas that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to know about the safety plan. I wanted to know about an external investigation they had done, and I wanted to know if there were any policy changes after the attack. They didn't want to talk about that stuff, certainly not on camera or in a recorded interview, but they did send me a detailed email, which I appreciated, because it said that after this attack, they had introduced an anonymous safety reporting tool. It's called PSST or PST. So if you look at it online, it's known in schools. It's not unique to Evan Hardy. They also introduced a way to document students showing troubling behavior. If you have a concern about a classmate, either from a student level or from a teacher, there's a way to report that. And they also confirmed that there is an independent investigation happening. At the time, they didn't say when it would be done or who would see the findings, but the parents followed up just before the story ran. They had contacted one of the directors with the school division, and they were told, and the school division confirmed for me, that investigator's report is now done, but it's with the school division's lawyers, so they aren't going to share it until it's been lawyered.
Dan, I know that the family is really working on this so that this doesn't happen again. They don't want to see another family go through this or what their daughter has gone through. This is a lot to manage, more than any of us could imagine. How has this affected their family?
Well, they still are a family. I mean, that became really clear when I met with them. They laugh, they cry, they move on. They cook a lot of pancakes. The one thing I learned about the daughter was at Smitty's and at home. She likes the pancakes and she likes them with a lot of whipping cream. So she gets all the whipping cream that she wants. In the end, though, when I talked to her dad pretty much summed up, first of all, what they've learned about their daughter since this attack.
She's amazing. She's a strong young woman. She has bad hours now, and they are getting fewer, but she powers through those releases of frustration and pain, and just why me? type of stuff. And after that, she's your own. Our daughter is our daughter. Her personality shines through those dark moments, and at times makes our life easier too, because we see what she's really like.
That's the sound of a family right there.
Absolutely. I'm happy to hear that they have some moments of joy. What have you heard from people since you first published your story? Are there any developments that you can share with us?
Well, the first thing I always knew on all stories is never go online and read comments.
Oh, boy.
I went on Reddit and I was astonished at the universality of the love this young woman was getting. There was not a single troll to be found, and I read them all. If anything, there was a lot of anger at the school and the police, people wanting answers. One of the other great things is the band Metallica. I know that a number of people had reached out to the band online with a link to the story. And the band actually, the management got a hold of me and passed that along to the girl's family that they wanted to connect. And it was quite an actually interesting little dance with the band because I ended up asking the guy purporting to be the manager to call me, saying, "Look, I'm just worried that this is some elaborate setup to hurt her because online is a savage place." And he responded in kind, saying, "I'm really glad that you did this because this particular band gets approached by a lot of people who have sad stories. And it's typically, I know someone who knows someone who has this tragedy. Can you help out?" So when the CBC stories were sent to them, we have the credibility of the public broadcaster. We're an open organization. They can find me. I'm easy to find. So it was a really nice little union, and they were more than happy to reach out in some capacity. And not to belabor the story, the other thing that was really nice was there was an emergency room doctor I know in town, a guy named Mark Waba, who had reached out to me and said, "Look, I read the story and I was really touched. I myself, Mark Waba, play guitar, and I'm a Metallica fan. And he had seen them here in Saskatoon a number of years ago, and he had one of their guitar picks with the Saskatoon Metallica with the date on it. And he passed it along to me.
Oh, that's nice.
And I passed it along to them. And they sent me a really nice photo of their daughter holding this pickup with a grin that would warm the heart of even an old reporter.
Well, Dan, this does have to carry on through the court system. What comes next?
The teen accused of the attack pleaded not guilty last month, so that would be in February. She'll be back in court in July for her preliminary hearing at provincial court. And while this is all going, the injured teen's parents will be continuing to go to all of the court appearances as they have, still hoping to find the answers that they seek.
Dan, thanks so much for your work on this.
You're welcome, Sam.